Okay, so we're going to take a look at the practice problem for Chapter 3. Question number 1 says a shift in the budget line in the graph below here is due to what? If anytime we take a budget line and we're going to move it to the left, we know that we have a decrease in our overall income. So this is going to be a fall in income because we can no longer purchase things at the price and quantity that we had before we lose our buying power. In question 2, the clockwise rotation here in the diagram best explained by, in this case, the pork prices, the price for pork stays constant. So we're going to buy the same amount of pork for our budget. But in this case, we went from 14 units to 12 units of beef. That means that we're unable to get those extra 2 units because it's more expensive. So the price of beef went up. Given these indifference curves in the graph, which combination of wings and hamburgers yields the highest level of satisfaction? Remember that each of these indifference curves is going to be giving us a different level of utility. So all the way to the right, the one that's furthest to the right is going to give us the most amount of utility. That's going to be 5 wings and 5 hamburgers. So that's your answer there. Question 4, consider the demand shift. In this case, imagine, just consider that it moved to the right. So it went from this demand line to this demand line. And I know some people are getting demand lines and budget lines confused. We have to look at them. They're different animals, but we have been using them kind of during the same time frame. So in this case, we're talking about a demand shift to the right. And when it shifts to the right, we need to take a look at the fact that the consumer income went up. If it does this parallel between these two products, it means that they have more money to purchase more of each of those commodities. Marginal utility associated with drinking coffee. Now, this is one that if you stop halfway through, you're not going to be able to get the information. So remember that when we talk about marginal utility, marginal means change. So we need to bring in the delta. So the change in utility and the delta for the quantity of cups of coffee. So we have a change of 20 and a change of 2. Here's our 20. Here's our 2. So when we take 20 divided by 2, we end up with 10. So the marginal utility associated with drinking coffee is 10. Number 6, according to the chart below, which bundle is least preferred? And least is the key here. We have to look at the one that's the least preferred. We don't really know for sure what the total utility is, but all we're going to do is assume that the total utility is going to be equal for the quantity of popcorn and the quantity of sodas. So those being equal, all we have to do is just go ahead and add these together, these quantities together. And here's the math over here. And we can see that the top 3, we get 13 units of utility. I just made them as 1, so I just kept them as 1. You could put 10, you could put 20, you could put whatever, but at 1. This bottom one only yields 12 units. So the least preferred is going to be D. And just looking at it, you can see that it has the most of the lowest, what we would consider the lowest value if you were to buy either of these. So it has the most of the lowest and the least of the most valuable. So I mean, just looking at it, you can kind of see that it doesn't quite work out for us. Number 7. Now this is one that's another one that we have looked at over and over, and people are saying, well, there's not enough information to come up with an answer for this. We're looking at when the total utility is equal to 24. Do we even care about what these are down here anymore? We're not concerned with those. We're just looking when the total utility is 24. How many bottles of Dr. Pepper will the consumer give up? So we're going to lose some Dr. Pepper in order to get 1 more wing. Well, in this scenario, we lose a bottle of Dr. Pepper, but we don't gain 1 more wing, we gain 2. So if 1 bottle yields 2, then a half of a bottle is going to yield 1. So there's our answer for number 7. It's going to be 1/2. So you can see our changes there. 8's one that I'm sorry, but we had an error on the key. There is ways that we can do some calculations here to determine another answer, but we're just going to go with the most obvious response here, and we're going to look at the total amount of utility that's being presented. And we're going to say that according to the chart below, bundle C is preferred. And that's because of the total amount of utility. If you went in and just assigned utility and price to those individuals based on some of the other problems that we've worked on, you could even see based on numbers how this works out. We can see how much this costs us just to get 30, and it costs us this much to get 40. So we actually get the least amount of cost for the greatest amount of utility. So the answer to that one would be C because of the total utility. Question 9, given the following data, and as we look at this, the question is built in, and some people are like, well, what do? We don't, well, here's what it is. We have to solve for this question mark right here. Well, obviously, we're not going to have marginal utility here in the beginning because there's no change. So let's start taking a look at change. So from 3 to 5, we end up with a change of 2. And from 60 to 90, we end up with a change of 30. Now, some people are saying, oh, well, that must be 30. And no, it's not 30 because, remember, we have to be able to divide this out when we look at both wings and the total utility. So we had 2 for the wings, and then we have 30 for the utility. So if we divide those, we're going to get 15. So 15 units of utility is going to be our answer here for marginal utility. Final question, question number 10. It says, if the expenditure allotted for to buy Subway and Chick-fil-A sandwiches is equal to $60, so we know our budget is $60, what is the price of a Chick-fil-A sandwich? There's a lot of information in here that you can get kind of tripped up on. The big thing you need to look at is that if we had $60 and we can buy 20 Chick-fil-A sandwiches for $60, you do the simple math on figuring out $60 divided by 20, and we end up with $3. So the price of a Chick-fil-A sandwich is $3. Don't get lured into worrying about this price difference. We could ask 4 or 5 different questions from this same diagram.